Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the JPW interview series. I'm here today with Alex Hubler. I'm Bryan McWhite, and Alex has been with us for, we just said...
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years, which is crazy. I said maybe 2, and you're like, nah, it's actually coming up on 3, so amazing. And you've been in the real estate business for, you've been licensed for 7.
Yep.
Been really hitting it hard for about 5.
Yep.
Great. And today, the reason I wanted to have you on today was to talk about the ideas of consistency and steadiness in business. I think that those are attributes of realtors that kind of goes, under the radar. It's one of those things that we all assume, but very, very few agents actually have the discipline, the steadiness, and the consistency that they need to make their business go long term. And I just feel like you're such a good example of that. So now I've set the bar really high. Are you ready to clear it?
I'll do my best.
Well, okay, first of all, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Cassie. How are things going with you guys?
Yep. I've been like you said, I've been in the real estate business for 7 years. I've been on my own for 5 of those 7 years. So I've been in, I've gotten my feet wet here, and yeah, you mentioned Cassie. She's my wife. We have a daughter, Nora, who's going to turn 3 pretty soon here. And like we were talking about before, we have a baby on the way as well. So growing family.
So excited for you, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It gives me a little more fuel to my fire
I bet.
when it comes to real estate. So
I bet. That's great. One of the things that we talked about last time we got together was morning routine. And so I'm kind of consistent to hear about what your morning routine is. And it's actually now influenced my morning routine a little bit.
Good.
So yeah, let me hear what you do as I sit here and drink my coffee that I need to have.
Yeah. No, I think morning routine is super important to, staying on your A game and meeting your goals. And like we talked about last time we got together, part of that is having the right mindset. And so I think in the past, I've kind of focused on more of overall health as far as running and biking and being physically fit. But lately I've shifted more towards kind of more of the mental side of things. And part of that is, I don't necessarily call it meditation, but it is probably an aspect of meditation. Specifically, he's kind of this wackadoo kind of guy. His name's Wim Hof. I'd heard him on Tim Ferriss's podcast and some other podcasts. And
that's where I first heard him too.
Yeah, super interesting guy. But anyways, I listened to him a handful of times and I was like, this guy sounds insane, but I kind of like it.
Because he does this breathing method that's kind of intense. Yep. And then pairs it with cold showers or cold baths, cold therapy.
Exactly. Yep. So it's kind of intense. It's this breathing exercise, and I don't talk to anyone about it other than like you and maybe a couple other people. So it's a little uncomfortable, but but it's something that you can do just, at home, kind of part of your morning routine or bedtime routine. And it just kind of grounds you.
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you what I'm doing right now, because I had heard about him on Tim Ferriss as well. I thought a while ago I should try this out, and then you and I had happy hour, and you really find a lot of value in this. Yep. So I was like, all right, I got to try it. So Laura and I started the 20-day challenge kind of thing. Yep. And so we do it's 3 rounds of breathing. It's about a 12-13 minute breathing exercise, and then you get at least this is what I'm doing. You get in the shower. You do your normal shower, but then for the first week, the last 30 seconds of the shower, you put that water as cold as you possibly can. Yep. And you just suck it up and deal with it and try to breathe through it while your whole body's going, Yep. And the whole point is trying to bring you down. And also, obviously, the cold water is good for inflammation and all that. Yep. And then you build upward, right now I'm at a minute, and you build up to 2 minutes. Yep. And what I have found, I'm really curious to see how, we haven't talked about this since I started this. What I have found is that, you mentioned mindset. I get out of there and it feels like I've had 3 cups of coffee and a therapy session. Like it immediately turns my sort of morning stuck, I need some inertia thing, and transforms it into like, I'm ready to go. Yep. Is that what you found helpful and appealing about it?
For sure. Okay. Because I'll find myself at times where I'm hard on coffee. I'm drinking tons of coffee, and then I get all jittery and I'm all cranked up, and then it it kind of carries over to more of like your psyche, and you're kind of more on edge, and you're kind of more irritable almost. Whereas, I always am trying to find that way to kind of like cool out and, not be so on edge. Yeah. And part of that too is, so like I said, I used to drink a lot of coffee. Then I switched to green tea. I like tea. It still gives you a little bit of that pep, but it doesn't quite give you the jitters. And then kind of the next step there was, finding Wim Hof or some type of a meditation practice. And that's what's worked really good for me.
Yeah. It's been so helpful for me. So I appreciate the kind of encouragement. Like, try this out.
I like hearing it because I don't preach it. So
I know you don't. I don't even know how it came up in our conversation. Yeah. But
I think, what it was? I think you just asked me, do you do any type of like meditation or anything like that? Which I thought was so funny because that same week my dentist asked me, and I was like, what is going on? Dentist. All these people are asking me if I meditate.
Your dentist and your broker are interrogating you about meditation. That's great.
Yeah, it's funny.
Nice. Okay, so let's move a little bit into business here. Mm-hmm. So back to the theme of consistency and steadiness. In my experience, I think in all of our experiences, realtors come into the business and they tend to be looking for a magic bullet. Mm-hmm. They tend to think that all the best realtors have a card up their sleeves that they don't have, and they need to find the card.
Yeah.
And we're always preaching to people, there is no magic bullet. Mm-hmm. There is no card up the sleeve. It's steadiness and consistency.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you how those themes have showed up in your business and helped power your business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's exactly that. It's consistency and knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and then tapping into your strengths. And for me, it's finding a model that works for me and then sticking with it. And then I think, like you've said before, kind of like see how far we can take that. And, how far can we tap into this? And for me, cold calling and, prospecting in more of like a traditional salesy approach isn't like, that's not one of my strengths. Mm-hmm. It's something I can do, but it's more of a stretch. So with that, it's finding, where are my strengths? My strengths are, I know a lot of people. I have this big sphere of friends, family, acquaintances, and providing value for them, and just kind of knowing that there is a model and that if you adhere to it, you will have results. Mm-hmm. So if there's, high times, great, kind of have fun. But then if, there's a quiet time, just have faith, but not necessarily blind faith in that model.
Sure. You chose a model. Well, first of all, how did you choose a model? Did you just kind of...
I think it's evolved over time. Yeah. I think that, at my previous brokerage, it was a little more of, I think inherently their model is a little more of the door knocking and the, cold calling
cold
and
lead generation.
Yep. Calling canceled and expireds and, really hammering home on that while, that I think is great for an agent, for some agents, that's great. And I think some of the top producing agents, that's what they do. And it works for them.
Especially if you don't start out with a sphere or something like that. You need to make cold contacts.
For sure. Especially like if you move to a new market or, you're not, in an area where a lot of people, for sure, that's a good model. So yeah, I think consistency just comes back to...
That was the model that you kind of like came into the business under, but your model has evolved.
Yeah.
And so you've got a business plan that you kind of like...
Yeah. And so part of that was sitting down with you and Josh and you guys kind of seeing these different models. And I'd worked on a team before and they had a model that worked really well for them, but it wasn't necessarily the model that would work best for me. But it still taught me the fact that there is a model. And if you adhere to it, you're going to have results.
Yeah. So as you're working your model, can you think of examples of things that you have to say no to, the things you don't do in order to stick to that model and believe in that model?
Yeah, it's fighting the urge to do the cold calling and to do the things that I don't have results from. And stop wasting my time on these things where, like, I used to have, a call system where I would, think of it just as calling through the phone book. Yeah. And for me, I did generate a little bit of business off of it. But for, if you calculate, your time on task and how much effort you're putting into it and the results you're getting, I wasn't getting the results that I would want. Yeah. So when I sat down with you and Josh, it was super easy to say, okay, where's your business currently coming from? How are you doing it? And then you guys kind of knew of more models to then kind of tap into and kind of reposition myself.
Yeah. Was there a reason early on that you didn't want to go more toward your sphere? That you kind of, is it just that that's the model you were taught early on, is like cold call, door knock, mailers?
I don't like it when people call me and are like, hey, like, you want to buy my product? It's like, no, I don't. No, you asked, like, I don't know. I'm fine.
So okay. So did you, what made your mind change? Like, how did you start calling your people? What made you feel okay with getting in touch with your sphere?
Kind of coming just from a position of value, providing value, not, hey, I want to sell you a house for me.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to get into a house that is your, that's going to help you out in your situation. This isn't about me. I'm going to this isn't about me. I want to provide value. And that mainly, I think, I also, right after college, I did an internship doing financial advising, and awesome experience. I met cool people. I learned a lot about the business, and at that time I thought that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't feel passionate about it because not everyone needed the products that I was pushing, especially at my stage in life, when a college kid doesn't necessarily need, to be buying these like stocks and like investment portfolios. And I mean, it's probably a great idea, but not everyone's able to do it. So, so I think, that's ultimately what started to kind of push me in the direction of real estate, was because we all need a place to live.
I think that change in mindset from I need to get you to buy something, I need to sell you something, to I'm going to provide value to you. We say it here so often, it feels like a broken record, but it transforms businesses.
For sure.
Another agent that Bryan in our office, same thing. He came into the business building his business, and he had a pretty big sphere as well, just like you.
Yep.
And he built his business really on door knocking, cold calling, and stuff like that, which produced some results and helped him build his sphere further. But he didn't want to call into his sphere for the same reason. I don't want to bother my people with stuff. But as soon as he realized, okay, no, I'm going to enter in and provide value, which in my mind just means providing something that they can use that's useful to them, or making them feel good.
Yeah,
that's it.
And you can see it in his business. I mean, he's killing it, and it's a direct result of kind of being able to reposition yourself and provide value.
Well, and you too. I mean, you are now enjoying the kind of business that you want to have.
Yeah.
Because you're working with your friends, you're just providing value to people that you know. You're doing great work, you're a craftsman. I mean, that's a really enjoyable realtor life.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely sitting down with you guys and being able to kind of identify that model has just given a lot more like calm and peace to know that it doesn't have to be as much of a hustle and a grind as maybe you might think it is.
Yeah. I think that when I sit down with agents who don't want to tap into their sphere, and I ask them, what if there was a way to tap into your sphere? What if there was a way to call people where they wouldn't say like, ugh, another one of my friends selling something? Just what if?
Yeah.
Just that question gets people thinking like, oh, well, what is it? Is there one?
Yeah.
And it's really not that difficult.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people's agents' apprehension to tap into their sphere might be because you see that, you might see somebody who is a successful sales agent, but, first they're in this industry and then they're in that industry and they're moving on kind of quickly. And it's almost like a turn and burn. Yeah. Whereas, and that's something that I've adopted too, that contributes to my consistency is I'm all in on real estate. I have been, and I will continue to be, and I'm not going to be moving on to that next kind of, business or what have you. It's real estate all in, full time, full service.
Yep. So I want to get to that. I want to get to kind of where your business is and where you want to take it and how steadiness and consistency play a role in that. Let me just ask you about your last year. You if I got your numbers right, you in the last year got about 10 listings pending and closed, about 4 buyers pending or closed, about 5 million volume. How did you end up so listing heavy? That's wherever every agent wants to be.
Yeah, right. And I think that's contributed to my consistency. And it's interesting that you say that. That is very listing heavy as opposed to 50-50 or very buyer heavy. And in the past, so last year I think was interesting because it was COVID and it was, this crazy market that we're in. And prior to that, I had been pretty 50-50, like for every buyer I had a seller. And that I think is where everyone wants to be because, you kind of have the best of both worlds. It's just a healthy, balanced business model. So to go from that 50-50 to pretty heavy listings is it's a good thing. I'm happy about it. I think anybody would be happy about it, but you could also feel like I left money on the table by not having more buyers. And sure, there's part of me that feels that way, but at the same time, COVID marketplace is crazy and it definitely excluded some buyers that, aren't able to buy or just don't want to deal with the competitiveness or for whatever reason have removed them from that buyer pool.
So you said no to some buyers last year, said essentially, I'm not going to be able to help you last year. And that's why your buyer number is a little bit lower?
Okay. There was definitely an aspect of that. I had also completed my first flip property. So that kind of, I'd say that, because as we see in real estate, like the time that like the effort that I put in now will come to fruition and show up, months down the road. So I think
12 months maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it may be years even. So I think that time that I lost in real estate sales by focusing on a flip property kind of took away from maybe some of those buyers that could have been there. But it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Yeah, in that
possibly.
Situation.
But also, I mean, it is worth saying, when you're brand new in the business, you kind of got to take all the buyers that you can.
For sure.
But you do get to a spot, maybe earlier on than most realtors think, where you have to say no to some buyers who, I hate saying things like might not be worth the time because everyone's worth the time.
For sure.
But I mean, in this market, if you're $250K and you're FHA and you have to wait. You can't go look at a listing unless it's already been on the market a weekend.
Yeah. And I don't want to come off the wrong way and sound like I said no to people who are legitimate buyers. It just is that much more of a challenge. And I'm going to always be there for those people, whether it's today, tomorrow, a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. But what's right for them might not be, everyone's different and it might not be the best time.
That's the thing is I don't think we're saying no to buyers. It's more like consistency and steadiness and commitment. Faithfulness is the word you use, which I really like that word. Faithfulness to your business plan, to your model. It's sometimes that can get so easily derailed if you are working with a buyer who you haven't been honest with about the conditions of the market and what's possible. And you're just taking them on 50 showings to tour properties to kind of be nice. Which feels nice, but it's also can be suicide for your business plan. So, okay, you mentioned your flip. We're both in this, you and I, to help build value into our clients, help provide value to our people, but also we don't work for free. We're trying to build something ourselves as well. So how does consistency and steadiness, how do you see that playing out long term? Where do you want to go from here? Obviously, you're doing a flip already, so you're starting to think investment properties.
Yep, for sure. Well, I think if we take a step back and look at consistency in the past, it's kind of what has got me to here, and then that consistency will get to where I want to be in the future. But I think that consistency is just always, I think I'd mentioned it before, is some of it's like personal finance stuff, and just being able to having the comfort to say, I can't afford that. Even if you've got that, the dollar in your hand and you can't, you physically can afford it, but trying to make wise decisions that will impact you further down the road. Like, for example, personally, what's worked for me is buying real estate, being in real estate, even so, like before I was an agent. So 10 years ago, I bought my first house, primary, just a place to live. Got roommates. They helped subsidize the cost of living. And, then I didn't go wild. I didn't remodel the house or anything. I just lived in it. And so I think owning real estate has consistently helped me get ahead and get to that next step as far as like my personal finances. I can go down the whole rabbit hole on that with, if you own real estate, I'm not, no one knows what's going to happen in the future, but what has happened for me is that the market has just continued to go up.
Yep.
So, ended up, once, got together with Cassie, we decided, we would need to get our own place and not, the house that I used to live with my roommates. And so when, sold that, didn't put any money into it.
Sold the place you had with roommates.
Correct. Yep. And it was a great house. And I think on that note too, is don't buy your dream house. Buy a house that you can afford and that you can live in. And so that wasn't my dream house, but it served a great function, great spot to live. And so we sold that and made some good money and was able to put a nice down payment on the next house. And again, we had the intention of living there forever and treated it that way, but also didn't spend boatloads of money on improvements. So and then went to go sell that when we started our family and needed to have more space. So, and again, was able to make some money and be able to put even a bigger down payment on the next house. And now we're in a position where we have a lower monthly payment, and that allows for, ebbs and seasonality in my sales business, where if I have, a little bit of slow time, well, I've got my expenses down and I'm able to, kind of float through, and it's not as big of an impact.
Yeah.
So
I like what you said about, okay. First of all, if you're in real estate, if you're a real estate agent and you don't own real estate, what's happening?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your long-term goals and what you're trying to do here. But I think that, you and Cassie have a specific goal in mind. You've got a place where you want to go. I won't try to articulate what your goal is, but most people who are in this business for the long haul want to try to attain financial freedom and even freedom of place.
Yep.
So you can kind of be where you want, work where you want, when you want, with who you want.
Yep.
And that goal requires consistency and steadiness in your personal finances. And what you said was, don't necessarily buy the dream home. I love that. You're kind of talking the language of bigger pockets right now.
I know, and I need to tap into them. I know that everyone...
Well, you've listened to their podcast a little bit.
Tiny little bit.
Okay,
not enough to speak confidently on.
They're just so big on the little bit of money you save now that you can invest. It just explodes.
Yep.
So going lean and trying to build that base and that foundation by consistently saying yes to the things for the kind of life you want to live, but no to the things that maybe someone else tells you that you should want to have.
Yep. For sure. And I think you mentioned goals. I think that's part of consistency too, is having a goal, writing it down, sticking to it. And, you're going to be able to reach your goals and be more consistent if you have a business plan and you have goals written down. Yeah. So
how do you mind if I ask how you and Cassie think about your goals? What is it that you want long term?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that complex. You want a place to live. You want to be happy, healthy, and, be able to raise a family and have the financial freedom to be able to do the things that you want. You don't have to have, a yacht and all this crazy stuff, but you want to be able to live your life. You want to be able to go to dinner and not have to worry about what the check is.
Yeah. Right.
And so I think that's our goal. Our goal is to be able to provide a life for ourselves as well as Nora and our next one, and be able to provide a life for them where, we don't have to worry about what dinner is going to cost and just have that comfort.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Well, and I appreciate that part of your goal is happiness. I don't know. That feels like one of those things that, I think a lot of people planning a business sort of leave out of the equation.
For sure.
There's the financial goals, there's the time goals, there's, independence of place has become a big thing now. I want to be able to work from anywhere, but leaving out, I want to be happy along the way while I do it, leads to a lot of people being pretty frustrated and sad and down in their work.
100%.
Because they haven't committed to, I want to do this in a way that makes me and my family happy too. And so they haven't set up their business in a way that will produce happiness. For sure. That's a huge component of where I've been, where I am currently, and where I want to be, is this, looking for happiness. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the news and everything, and news and politics and just stuff like that, where it's if that's all you do is get wrapped up in these negative things, you're not going to be happy. And then what's the point of any of it? Yeah. So I'd say, so if we go back to what our goals are, I mean, maybe the money is second. Not maybe, absolutely the money is second. I'd say happiness is the number one thing. So, I say that's true for me as well. Like not that everything in work is going to be easy, right? Happiness isn't the opposite of challenges and struggles. But I'm sort of consistently doing an audit on my life and in my work and how I'm doing it. Like, is this going to make me happy long term? Does it seem like I've been happy doing this for the last 3 months, 12 months? And obviously you're going to go through periods where it sucks, it's hard, it's whatever, you're frustrated, you get deals falling apart, agents frustrate you, whatever. But consistently, am I finding satisfaction and happiness in my work? And is my family getting a version of me that makes them happy?
Yep, for sure. And I think part of that too is making sacrifices and knowing that they're temporary. Like before I got into real estate and I worked in mortgage, I would commute to downtown Minneapolis every single day. And I knew that wasn't a realistic thing for me, but I knew that it was temporary in order to get from where I was to where I wanted to be and have that happiness. It's not that I wasn't happy then, but I knew that I'm making a sacrifice now so that I can be happy later. But on that same note, choosing happiness now is also important too, because like you said, there can be challenges, but you can either choose to get down on it, or you can, choose to still be happy and know that challenge does not dictate who you are and how you feel.
Yeah. Good wisdom there. Deep wisdom. Okay, so a couple of points I want to drive home, but then I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to make sure you add here. Of course, we've got JPW agents listening to this, new agents, seasoned agents. You and I are both kind of in between. We haven't been in the business 20 years, but we're not rookies either.
Yep.
And so I think a couple of the points you've made that need to be hammered home are obviously the consistency thing. Find a business plan, decide on a business plan that fits you, that you think will bring happiness to you in your work, and stick with it. Commit to it.
Yep.
Don't a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll see what happens. I'll work a little bit today, maybe tomorrow, we'll see.
Yep.
And then I'll work 15 hours on Saturday.
Yep.
Find a plan, have a goal, have a big why, something that you're driving toward that you can be consistent with.
Yep.
Make good sacrifices along the way. Make smart sacrifices in service of your goal. I love that. What else do we need to make sure that agents are hearing from you? Like what, or maybe this is a better way to ask the question. Yeah, go for it.
No, it's find a mentor or find people to look up to. It doesn't even have to be somebody that you know or somebody that you're going to spend time with, but be able to look up to and maybe it's a celebrity or something. Maybe it's someone on TV, but maybe it's somebody that you personally know too. And then just kind of, watch what they do and try and model that. And I mean, I think that you're a perfect example of that. I mean, you exemplify the person that, you want to be able to work in real estate together with, or be able to go to happy hour with, and try to model that.
Yeah.
And so I'd say pick one of those. Yeah,
I love
3
that.
top people.
That's great advice. I've gotten so much out of connecting with multiple people over the years, dozens and dozens and dozens of people who I say, I really like what their life looks like. And it's usually not someone sometimes it's someone who's wealthy, but sometimes it's just someone who's like, yep, it looks like they enjoy their work. Looks like they have a good relationship at home. I mean, sometimes how much can you know until you really get to know someone? But I like what they've got going on, or I like these components of what they've going on. I'm going to seek them out and figure out how they got there. Like, I think that's massive.
Yep. And I think, it's also like reading, it's doing the things that, they might be kind of like heavy lifting things. And again, making sacrifices. Like, so we had talked, last time we got together, we had talked about like, what are we reading and stuff. So I think that's a big component. And there's people who are heavy readers like yourself. And then there's people like me who I'd call probably like moderate to even light. So then the books that I do read, I pick and choose pretty wisely and then really hammer home on them. And I'd mentioned one of them that's not real estate related is Jack Canfield's Success Principles. I think that's just a really it's an easy read. It's business minded. It's not real estate focused, but it's by a good author, Jack Canfield, the Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul. Like that for me, the whole book is how do you get from where you are to where you want to be, and that in itself is kind of what we're talking about in goals. Right. So finding mentors and people to look up to, and then doing reading even if it's light.
Yeah, I put that book on my list after you mentioned it. I think it's third or fourth down. You're giving me way too much credit for how much reading I do, and the volume of reading I do. I think that for me, it's funny. When I was in grad school, I was going to do a PhD, and I went in and met with my advisor, who was a world-renowned scholar, and I said, "Look, I'm trying to figure out if I should do this. I'm not the smartest guy in the room in these grad school rooms. I'm never the smartest guy. And I'm a pretty slow reader. I read about as fast as I talk, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do."
Yep. Probably me too.
Yeah. Well, because I say the words out of my head, inside my head while I read. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So I can't read faster than I talk. But again, I think a lot of agents figure, 300-page book, who's got the time? Nobody does.
Yeah.
But 20 minutes a day, if you read 20 minutes a day, you can read 20 books in a year.
Yep.
And that's it.
For sure.
So that's what I find helpful. And my advisor told me that. He was kind of like, yeah, you are steady, consistent guy. If you just stick at that, you'll be able to read everything you need to read. You'll be able to finish a PhD, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And that's proven so true for me.
For sure. And even, you don't have to be on to the next newest, hottest thing, because it seems like it always is that. It's like, what are you reading now? Oh, it's the next thing. Oh, it's the hottest thing. We got to do it. If you found a book that you like and that gave you energy and pointed you in the right direction, go back and reread it. Yeah. I'd say that my top 5 books I've reread multiple times, and 100%. That's because that's what works for me. And then there's ones that I'll pick up and I get a chapter or two in and I'm kind of like, I'm not going to waste my time on this. It might be the best book ever, but for me, I got to tap out and go back to what works for me.
Well, in a lot of books that come out, it's a 250 page book wrapped around a 25-page idea.
For sure.
You can read the first chapter and then read the first and last paragraph.
A Netflix miniseries that should have been a movie.
Exactly right. Well, and the books thing ties really well into what you said about mentors. Like asking people that, finding someone that you admire in real estate or you like where they've gone, you appreciate their business, and finding out what they've read. What resources have they imbibed that have been helpful to them? Yep. And you're 100% right, going back to them. Someone told me early on in my real estate career, read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller. For sure. Read Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall.
For sure.
And then just keep reading them.
Yep.
Just read those over and over and over, because they're basically the same model.
Yeah.
Essentially. Just read them over and over, or read them once, highlight what you need to highlight, and then once a year come back and read your highlights, or get it on audiobook and just keep hearing it.
Yep. I think those two, my top 5 list has those two. Also, Jack Canfield's Success Principles and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I mean, that's one that I think total timeless classic that can be applied to any field. And so when you go back to mentorship, I mean, that a big component of that is finding, what did they call it? Your mastermind group, and surrounding yourself, kind of aligning and working to get, surround yourself with people who have the same goals, and that's part of it. I can't think of my fifth.
I was going to say that was only 4.
There's a fifth in there.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's a top contender. Top contender,
okay.
But it wasn't in my top 5. Okay. It'll come to me later.
Okay. The ones you mentioned. I mean, I haven't read the Canfield one yet, but those are all up there. I would also put on the list, if you're a person who wants to have happiness in their work and wants to feel good about how they're engaging with people in sales, I think The Go-Giver is one that I'd probably put in my top 5. It's a parable. I mean, I read it in 3 hours on a flight.
Wow.
It's a parable of a businessman who kind of gets into a funk and finds a wiser, older kind of mentor figure who sort of reset him on the concept of value.
Yep.
You need to provide value. It's essentially a sales book about karma. What you put out there will come back around.
Yep, for sure. I think I haven't read that book, but is it similar to Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning? Because that's
kind of going to the deep end right now.
That's kind of the same type of thing as far as finding your purpose and finding your meaning, and then being able to kind of thrive on that.
God, I wish that book was on everyone's reading list.
Yeah, and it totally not business related at all.
0% business related. It's a guy writing from the midst of the Holocaust. Essentially reflecting on how he survived the camps and talking about how significant finding purpose is and how that was the differentiator between life and death for people.
Yep. At the depths of despair, how are you going to conduct yourself?
Yeah, man, that's a heavyweight book.
Yeah, for sure.
Put that on your list. Okay. Well, hey, anything else you want to make sure you add, Alex? This has been great.
I want to keep this conversation going.
I know, man.
But no, I mean, I think there's just so much more than just real estate. And I think trying to be a better person, it'll come back and it'll all pay off. So you read those books that are not business related and not real estate related, and just do good, put your best foot forward and work hard.
Well, maybe, okay, before we end, can we just, because this is a passion I think both of you and I have. We want to invest in us as people. Mm-hmm. We want to invest in our humanity. We want to invest in our souls, let's just call it. Mm-hmm. Are there resources, are there things that have been really helpful for you in that? Like, let's just leave aside be a great realtor for a second. What about be a great person? Because that's going to help you be a great realtor. Mm-hmm. What have been some of the things that have been really useful to you?
I don't know if there's like a certain golden ticket, but it's just kind of self-awareness, being, knowing what you want in life, like for, what, like we've discussed, happiness, and what does that look like? What do you want that to be? And I don't know. I don't have some magic answer to that. But just be true to yourself and set goals for yourself. Whether they're monetary or emotional or whatever they might be, but set goals and stick to them.
Decide on the person you want to be.
Exactly.
And continue to make choices and decisions and have conversations that are steady and consistent with that model of who you want to be.
100%.
Great. Alex, man, I love talking with you. I love talking with you on mic. I love talking with you at happy hour. We're going to keep doing this.
Feelings mutual.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks
everybody for tuning in to the JPW interview series. We'll have more great people like Alex along the way.